Good afternoon. I chose as my topic a current debate that's going on in the church regarding contemporary worship services versus a more traditional service. And it's really in regards to the efficacy of contemporary worship and if it is indeed worship. The proponents are arguing that contemporary worship has just as much merit as more traditional forms of worship music, particularly hymns and choral music, but it appeals to a broader, younger audience and, draws more young people to the church, which is an area where the church is losing a lot of members, particularly in the young adults. But does appeal make it the right answer for churches today? I'm utilizing a couple of sources. Stephanie Budwei's article is Contemporary Worship Music Contemporary, Can Praise and Worship Music Foster Ecumenism, and Where Does Charles Wesley Fit In with All of This? Long title. And I also used Stephen Holmes' article on Listening for the Lex Orandi, The Constructed Theology of Contemporary Worship Events. And then I used an article on Reverend Kenneth Collins' website, A Case Against Contemporary Worship. So first, we need to define what contemporary worship is. And it's regarded as utilization of newer music performed and led most typically by a band. And in many in many churches, the worship team is on a stage with professional lighting and sound systems, and there can be a concert-type feel to it. There is a huge industry now that didn't exist prior to the early 90s. You had Bill Gaither, and some folks in the 70s and 80s, but it really took off in the 90s, and you had this huge industry now of contemporary worship and Christian music. And so it's from this professional atmosphere with this music that many critics voice their concerns. They're saying it's a Sunday morning concert designed to get people in church rather than feeding their souls and preparing them for worship. It's a sellout. They're selling out to worldly things and promoting a watered-down Christianity, which, in that view, and this is Reverend Collins, is no Christianity at all. Another issue that they cite is the nature of the music that's trending in contemporary worship today, and in the contemporary Christian music. Their argument is that the music's limited in its themes and its teachability, that it's really about emotion and getting people singing and clapping and all of that, but it's not deep. There's no intellectual component to it. There's no edification. They argue that it's like the milk that Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 3, where when you were a child, you drank milk, just like a new Christian needs that milk. But as you grow, you need the meat. And the contemporary Christian music doesn't necessarily have that in the same way that more traditional hymns have that depth. And in Stephanie Budwei's article, she used the hymns of Charles Wesley, renowned Methodist founder with his brother John, and he wrote over 6,000 hymns. And Budwei asserts that these hymns were both intellectual and affective. They had an emotional component, but they also had a teaching component. She said that they would connect the dots, basically multiple passages of Scripture that had the same theme were brought out in the same hymn. And he would also use magnify the dot, where a single Scripture was used and expounded on, or repeated throughout. And so while there was an emotional component to these hymns, they were rooted in Scripture, and they imbued knowledge to the singer, to the congregation, and it was used as an edifying tool. It's the same concept. It's the reason children learn how to sing their ABCs. We remember things when they're set to music. And so arguments against contemporary worship is not that there's a band, not that there's fancy lighting, it's that the music that's being used does not provide the edification necessary. And I think I'm not going to weigh in on either side of the debate. I just wanted to share kind of the two different views out there, and how I think there is a meeting of the minds where if you choose the right music, and the music is edifying, and the music builds to that teachability and puts the listener in mind for what the sermon is going to be about, then it being presented via a band, piano, guitar, a cappella, it doesn't matter. It's that it's there, it's present, and it is teaching what needs to be taught for the listener. Thank you.